Hey everybody.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this evening's episode of the Night Bite.
Yeah, it's Thursday.
It is Thursday. It comes around fast, and it's been an especially busy week for us because I just gave Josh a lot of grief about packing for our trip coming up this weekend. So the Ice Junkies meet and greet is going to be up in Siren, Wisconsin. We've been talking about it for some time now. It's always a really great event. And man, anytime that you can raise money and give back to the community you can't get better than that. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. And leading up to it, we've had a couple guides, John Sibley and Brian Brosdahl, both are auctioning off a guided trip with them. I know they started out at like $325 or $350. So if you're part of Ice Junkies, go on there, see where the bid's at. If you want to bid on it, go right ahead. It's all donated money. So
well, and again, I think both with John Sibley or with Brian Brosdahl is a trip for two. So great time to get your best friend and chip in half, and then you guys get a great trip out of it, and in addition, the money goes to the community and the people that need it. So, Upper and Lower Clam Lake, and
Siren, Wisconsin.
Siren, Wisconsin. So come out and see Josh and I because we'll be there. We will actually have an Ice Junkie hub, and we'll be all set up. So come and visit us.
We'll have our razor stuff out there. You guys can punch as many holes as you want as long as you're away from my shack because we're staying out there all weekend.
Yeah.
So that's a first. We just got the cots in the mail yesterday, and we're sending it.
Yep. So for those of you also going to the meet and greet, we hope to see you there. And for those of you who maybe can't meet and greet, we will post a little bit of it online.
Absolutely.
Watch on Ice Junkies. So with that being said, we have quite a few people tuning in, and we have a really exciting episode tonight.
Absolutely.
So who do we have on?
We have Mr. Jason Mitchell. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So the first question is always a little bit vague. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I just love to fish. I mean, I guided up on Devil's Lake for quite a few years. I got into television, about 11, 12 years ago already, and been doing television stuff ever since. I don't get to do any guiding anymore because I'm on the road all the time and stuff, but I love guiding. I always joke someday when I retire and get tired of doing TV shows, I'll probably go back to guiding because I enjoy it. But I just love to fish. I guess that's me in a nutshell. So.
And that is evident in all of the social media that you do, the TV shows, all of that, the love for the sport. And I had always thought of you kind of as a walleye guy, and then most recently you've been posting about crappies. So tell us a little bit about that.
I don't discriminate. Any red line I'll try to catch it. I don't care. I mean, I love fishing for everything. I mean, walleyes, we do a lot of walleye fishing on Devil's Lake, especially here where I live, and then obviously the perch, but we do a lot of bluegill fishing. We do a lot of crappies. I mean, we'll fish for anything. I love fishing for lake trout through the ice, big pike. I mean, I grew up fishing for bullheads. I don't care. I really don't care. As long as something's biting and I'm figuring it out and I'm catching fish, I'm happy. So.
Well, and you laugh about bullheads, but man, honestly, we've seen a few big ones this year, which is pretty crazy. So that's kind of a fun fish to fight. And then there's a lot of people around Wisconsin that like to smoke them. So I guess I'm not sure if I've ever done that or want to. But, some people really do love that.
Yeah.
We had some pretty heated bullhead tournaments when I was a kid. So,
as far as fishing, how is the ice by you?
It's been a different year. Obviously, we had really cold weather in October, when we were ice fishing early. I mean, we've been ice fishing for a long time up here. And, we were ice fishing in November and December. But we were ice fishing early, but then it's like we got hung up on 10, 11, 12 inches or less in places for a long time. So it's like we had a month where we didn't gain any ice. And so, we had safe ice for, snowmobiles, quads, side-by-sides and things like that. And a few people were driving in places, but the other thing too is we had a lot of pressure ridges and, they'd crack open and pop open and then they would never heal because we just never had any cold weather. And so it's been kind of a different year that way where I was joking earlier, I don't think I've ever used a spud bar so much as I have this year, and it just, everywhere we go, it's just, we're running to the same general conditions. But now this year, now we finally got a cold snap. This week it feels like January in North Dakota finally, 30 below with wind chill, or, it's cold. And so we're making ice. Now I quit measuring, but it's got to be 15 inches. The pressure ridges are starting to heal up. So it's game on. Starting to see a lot of pickups out and hard-sided houses and stuff like that. So it's starting to get a lot safer and a lot easier now. So.
And a lot of what you're saying is echoed very much in what's happening around here in Wisconsin, especially Winnebago. There was a lot of big tracks recently that opened up, and some people had some big problems with that. And we're finally getting that cold weather too, so that's a really nice thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. And we've had nice Januaries before, and at some point we're going to get winter, right? And if January is really nice and February probably isn't, just the rule of the averages. But at the same time too, we're trying to cram as much filming in as we can, because we're thinking there's some years where we're ice fishing well into April. It might not be this year, because we just don't have as much ice to deal with. We have 15 inches of ice now, maybe 16, 18 inches. Normally we have over 30 inches by now. So if you don't have as much ice, it doesn't last as long later. And so it's looking like it's going to be a shorter year for sure. I mean, like Fort Peck, I wanted to go out to Fort Peck, lake trout fishing, and last week they were still fishing in boats out there. I kept calling, hoping that maybe it was getting cold enough at night. I know it's 30 degrees during the day. It's a big lake, but any ice yet? No, bring your boat out. I'm like, that would really screw me up right now. I have a motto in the spring: once I put my boat in the water, I can't go back to the ice. So I can't wait this early. So.
Yeah.
So for anybody who has any comments, leave them in the comments and we will try to share them. I'm hearing a few people say that there's a little bit of feedback when I talk. So we're going to try to do a few things on our end and adjust that. Otherwise, thank you for bearing with us. But again, if you have any comments, drop them in and we will bring them up. So, Jason, you're talking all about the ice report, but that only takes you so far when it comes to the fishing. So how is that?
Oh, fishing's been all over the board. We've had some good bites on Devil's Lake. We've had some good perch bites earlier on and good walleye fishing. But, not every day is good. I mean, it's a big lake, and, you're welcome on a spot, and you have to find new fish. And, sometimes finding fish on a lake that size, can be intimidating. But, like this past week, I had to maybe 2 days that were just tough. I mean, I couldn't do anything right, and the fish were just really hard to catch, or it was even hard to mark fish. And talked to other people who are kind of going through the same thing. And then, yesterday we got on a pretty good perch bite, and then today we got on a pretty good walleye bite. But it's weird, there's definitely really narrow bite windows, and some of it's around the major or the minor, but when we get a full moon, a bright full moon like we have right now, it seems like it almost screws up our walleye fishing sometimes. But what I think happens, they eat, we have a stained lake where we don't have a real prominent night bite, but when we have this bright full moon, they eat just enough through the night where you don't get as good of a bite, as long of a window in the mornings and the evenings, where say on a normal day, you get maybe an hour and a half where you can sit on a spot and mark fish and catch them. Whereas like right now, it seems like it's a half hour. It's just really intense. It's like 15 minutes blitz. And boy, if you have a couple fish roll through and you didn't have a minnow head on, or you dump a couple, it's like, oh, your night's over. So it's really a short, intense window. It seems like that's kind of what we've been dealing with lately here at times. So, but like today, we found some walleyes in like 30 feet of water, and we, caught them mid-morning, and so that window probably lasted for an hour and a half.
So then out by you, that's funny. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback too. Sorry, guys. For people out by you, would you recommend that it's a lake that you can just hop out there and just try out, or is that something that you really recommend as a guide?
Well, people come here and fish Devil's Lake every day and just go out and fish and do well, and it's like anywhere, if you've never been to an area and you just have a couple of days, a guide can be a really good investment, because say if you have 4 days, for example, and it takes 2 days to figure out what's happening, you have to pay your tuition, right? I mean, sometimes you can just show up and drill a couple holes and get lucky. That happens. It's nice when it does, but if you're going in green, you can definitely learn a lot. We film with guides all the time, and just for myself, it's a deal where I just want to be a student of fishing. I just want to learn as much as I can, right? So I can go to a lake I've never been to before and catch a few, right? But I would love to get in the mind of somebody that's spent their whole life on that lake and help them tell their story, And so, I always look at it, a lot of times, I always say the fish are the star of the show, and just use our platform to help show other people, and show their story and get inside their brain, and that's good for everybody, as far as whether it's John Sibley, what he's doing on Gagibik to catch perch out there, you can take a lesson from that and bring it back to Devil's Lake, or you can contrast such differences from, say, perch fishing in Saginaw Bay in 6 feet of water with a bead spoon versus what John Sibley's doing up on Gagibik versus say a flowage, for example, at 7 feet in central Wisconsin versus, say, even the big natural lakes of Minnesota fish completely different. Mille Lacs compared to Leech compared to Winnie. Then you've got the Dakota lakes, and you've got Cascade. So that's just perch fishing, in the differences. But you take any fish, crappies. I mean, you take a crappie in a reservoir in Nebraska in a completely different program than say a stock pond or a borrow pit in northern Indiana, and so that's what I love. That's what makes it so much fun for me, is everywhere I go, there's so many things to learn, and there's so many neat things that are different, and it's funny because invariably, you think you figure out a few things, and I can't tell you how many times where I'd go somewhere and run into somebody and they've got their program, and you're kind of sizing things up thinking, man, that's pretty crude. I can't wait to show these folks what I've got up my sleeve tomorrow. And then just getting your clock clean because they've figured out something that you weren't even aware of yet, right? Like going out to Erie and and you see these big bell sinkers and these basically, it was like a crappie rig with these multiple hooks coming off of it, and they're hooking up shiners thinking, my God, how does a perch move a sinker like that? I mean, you'd started it if you had used that on Devil's Lake. I can't wait to show them what this little tungsten jig. Well, then you get out there's so much current, nothing in your tackle box even works, and so that's the neat thing about it. And the most beautiful things that we ever encounter by far, the things that I enjoy the most, is when I can find somebody that's been under a rock, right? Somebody that's been isolated away from everything. They don't follow social media, they don't read, they don't do anything, but they just figured out something all by themselves where nobody told them anything, right? And so invariably, when you find those people that have been under a rock, they figured out their own way to do things. It's pretty beautiful, because they through trial and error, through a lot of time on the water, a lot of time on the ice, they figured things out all on their own. And so everything they do is completely different, and that's where you can really learn a lot, because invariably, if everybody consumes the same information, everybody kind of fishes the same, and so that's kind of one of the things that we're always looking for and always trying to push ourselves, is to try to figure out different things. There's still people say, oh, there's nothing new in fishing. There's all kinds of things if you if you look, because there's all kinds of stuff.
So then if somebody makes a TV show and social media, how do you handle that when you get great information, but then maybe don't want it in the wrong hands? I mean, how do you balance that?
I don't ever look at it in the wrong hands. I mean, I love fishing. I love seeing people catching fish and developing that passion. Fishing's done so much for me, not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. I think fishing's good for people, and I remember, being, 18 years old, maybe having a chip on my shoulder, where if I didn't have something to catch, I would have probably gotten a lot more trouble. And so I think fishing's great for people. I always tell people, you look at all the tragedy in this world, right, where you have these, especially young people, angry young people, where they're walking into a school with a gun, shooting people that they've known their whole lives, or they're on top of a car with a bat. I mean, those people just didn't get done throwing a topwater that morning. They didn't get done just climbing out of a tree stand. They're going to go to a bar and stab somebody, right? I mean, so fishing is really, really good for people. And so I've never apologized for, showing or teaching or telling. I mean, I think more people fishing this world's a good thing. And there's always something new, I mean, there's people that don't want to say anything or share anything. It's like they're secret or whatever. And I even see that with tournaments, right? Where, they're really, really good anglers, and they win a couple tournaments or two, and everything's taken to the grave. That's fine. But guess what? they don't get to quit their day job. It's fun when you get to quit your day job, and that's how you do it. You help, you share and you teach and you try to get other people. Try to help other people. That's what it's all about.
So then you have a TV show that's a little bit easier to carry that out through. But how does the average person go about doing something like that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. I mean, the formula that worked for me might not work for somebody else. And the other thing too is it's generational, right? Where when I was coming up, there's a certain way to do things and certain things that were kind of taboo, right? Whereas you look at, for example, there's some young kids that are coming up that are YouTubers, for example, that have quit their day job, right? They're making a living off of that, and but they figured out a new way, a different way. If they would have done things the exact same way that I did, it probably wouldn't have worked for them. They figured out their own recipe or their own formula. And what I always tell people that are young or people that are new trying to get into the industry is it's almost like the music industry, okay, where you can regurgitate somebody else's information, okay, but all you're doing is you're helping the person that came up with the information and shared it first, because they're the ones that have the endorsement deals, they're the ones that have the product sponsorships and so on. And so you can be a cover band for AC/DC, right? But you don't get paid like AC/DC. Okay, so you got to come up with your own music. That's really important. And so it might be getting known on a particular lake and figuring out some of the nuances. Maybe it's a deal where you figured out, really, the finesse bites before everybody else did, and you're able to teach people, or you're able to, guide people, whatever, or educate people. Maybe it's, something broader than that, but you have to find that niche. For some people it's guiding, for some people it's promotions and marketing, and everybody, I truly believe that God gives everybody a skill, or a gift, right? I mean, some people are patient, some people aren't. I mean, my wife, for example, she could never run a business, but she's very nurturing, and she can, before she stayed at home with our kids, she was a kindergarten teacher. I'd go and see her at the school, and all these kids would run around. I'd be like, sort of bite myself, I just don't have that patience, right? And where she does. And so everybody has a gift. And so it's a deal where, there's so many different segments in the fishing industry that no matter what your gift is, you just have to find something that fits you. Some people are great sales reps, some people are great marketers, some people are accountants, whatever. But the fishing industry needs just about every skill set imaginable. So.
That's a lot of good info for, some of the youth out there on social media, because there's a certain expectation for how things do or should work. And I think those words do and should maybe don't even necessarily totally apply there. So, kind of getting your experience on that is really a unique perspective that I don't honestly think people talk about enough. And ultimately it all, it all comes down to the fishing itself. And, kind of what you like to do and how you like to do it. So, getting out with friends and finding out what they do, taking others out is a really, really great way to go about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always believe this, and everybody has to have confidence, right? You have to, believe in your abilities. Okay. But it's a fine line sometimes, in the sense that you also have to have humility. Okay. Because, if you can't drop your ego at the door, sometimes you just can't learn something. Sometimes, like if you ever fish tournaments, right? I mean, you're going to do bad in some. Okay. And when you do bad, the best thing you can do is go over and shake the person's hand and congratulate, they beat you that day. They had to figure it out. You didn't, and try to take something away from it and learn, right? Sometimes, you might know where the person that won it was fishing, and we were over the basin, and those guys are back up in that bay, and I know that bay is no deeper than 7 feet. Those guys, gals found those weed fish, and I never spent any time doing that. Next time I'm gonna, it might be something that simple, or it might be just self-awareness and just a self-assessment where, I sucked, and what did I suck at? And then, and be real with yourself. And, but at the same time, you can't, I think what happens with some people is that they put themselves ahead of the industry or ahead of the resource. Okay, it's all about them, and it's me, I. And the trick is to serve others. Okay, if you put the resource in the industry ahead of yourself and serve others, a check always comes in the mail, a bill always comes in the mail, and you pay it, right? And so that's the whole key, is that you have to, because it's a humiliating, humbling deal. I mean, there's days where you're going to feel like the worst fisherman on the planet. There's days where you can't do nothing right. I mean, there's just, and the other thing too is once you get any type of a profile, you have a huge bullseye on you where, you're gonna, you're gonna be like a B-17 bomber flying over Berlin where they're just flat going up around all around you, right? And some of it hits you once in a while, and you have to keep on flying, right? And so if you have any type of profile at all, you're going to deal with people that are, people call them haters or whatever, and you think it's bad on social media, try having a TV show. I mean, people are funny, right? And so you have to, the only way to go, to get through the humility is it can't be about you. I mean, I see people flame out all the time where, they get into it, and in some ways they get into the fishing industry for the wrong reasons, and they don't last long enough because you can't make it 2 or 3 years. You can't make it 5 years. It takes a career, and what I mean by wrong reasons is, if people get into the fishing industry or fish just for some type of fame or attention or glory, I got news for you. That wears off so fast, and you just don't live to fight another day. You don't last in the industry long enough, so you're done before you even get started.
But being a fisherman yourself, that does last.
Absolutely.
So you're saying going out there, doing it for the right reasons, doing it for yourself, doing it for fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do it for the right reasons in the sense that, don't make everything about you. Drop the ego, have some humility, be willing, be able to relate and connect with people, be able to teach people, be able to serve people and help people. If you can do those things, I just think it's just a lot easier to quit your day job. Yeah. Even like guiding, right? I mean, I was a young guide once, and I learned these lessons the hard way. I mean, I didn't start out knowing what I know now, right? I mean, I've made mistakes. I've made every mistake. And I can remember one time I was fishing over by the casino on Devil's Lake, and it's like, I was having a tough day, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I think my guys had like 2 or 3 perch in their bucket, and they weren't the biggest perch, right? And just drilling holes, and it was like a trail of tears. And finally got on a good school of fish, and we got them pretty good, and I mean, just a lot of work that led up to this. Well, then the next day I go out and I've got a new group. I go right back to that spot, and we're getting fish, and a guy pulls up, and he pulls up right next to me, so close I couldn't open the tailgate of my pickup, and drills a hole and starts fishing. Well, he's catching a few, and then all the commotion kind of pushed those fish off. And so then I found those fish again about 50 yards away. I moved my guys, and the guy moved right on top of me again. Well, then the fish shut down. Then I found the fish again, like maybe 100 yards away. Moved my guys again, and he was right on top of me. He had this big, loud, noisy jiffy. And finally, it was like March 17th. I've been guiding for 100 days in a row. I finally just had enough. I went over, and pretty soon we get in this screaming match, just, it didn't go well, right? And that's the only time I ever had a confrontation on the ice. And that was the last time, and I remember just feeling so stupid afterwards. Or here, my customers could hear me, they're inside the tent, and they could hear these guys screaming or whatever. And I mean, I thought, the guy was making a jerk move, but thing is, you can't win. Okay. The guy goes back to the bar. It's, this punk, I've been fishing this lake longer than he's even been born, and thinks he owns a lake. It never, they don't ever tell you that, I saw him catching fish. So I drilled up right next to him 5 feet away. I mean, that never, they never tell that part of the story. Right. And so you can't win. And so, so when you're guiding, for example, you can't have those confrontations. I tell young people all the time, just grin and bear it. It's just part of the deal. If you get in confrontations, you always lose. There's no winner in that. And you just have to, and try to do right by people. I mean, somebody's stuck, pull them out. I mean, because it's sooner or later you might need help. And as I got older and got more polished in that regard, at least a little bit more insight on it, a little bit more wisdom, I got to where I just help everybody. So they weren't hiring me. They'll never hire me, whatever. I'd just be helpful. I'd tell them a spot where I thought they could go catch the fish. I might not tell them exactly where I plan on fishing that morning, but I would be helpful. And what was amazing was that people begin to help me so much. Okay. Where I one day I remember vividly, I went to the resort in the morning to get bait, and I had I knew my spot was falling apart, and I think, man, where am I going to go now? I've been in the same spot for 3 days in a row. I haven't been anywhere else, and I can't go there the 4th day. Now I'm back to square zero, and guy working the base goes, hey, there's an envelope in your mailbox back there. So I go back and what's this? Well, here it's an envelope, and there's like a folded up piece of paper with waypoints on it. This road bed, guys were catching fish for a couple days and went over there and whacked them, and here's a guy that, I barely remember talking to him. I just told him some spots and he appreciated. Or the other thing is that people that will never hire you, well, if you're nice to them and treat them right, well, then they go home and their buddy at work wants to hire a guide. And so, you just get a lot more goodwill around you, you just get a lot more momentum. And so that was one of the things I learned is that you just had to try to do right by people. If you do that, it's a lot easier. So.
Well, and I particularly love that story because we have a few little teeny tiny fishing spots, backwaters on our Wolf River. And I am telling you, when these are small spots, like smaller than my house, literally, and connected to the river, it can be a great fishery, but you're almost always walking up on somebody else that's there. And so, that exchange in that moment of approaching is a really important moment because sometimes people just leave grumpy. Oh, there's somebody there. I can't be there. Or sometimes people just walk on like they own the place. And that's, a specific sign as well.
Yeah. I just try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, there's times where you pull into a spot and there's somebody sitting there, and you think, okay, and then try to, give them some room. I find it's a lot easier just to talk to people. Hey, how's it going? Oh, good. And yeah, I was in here yesterday. Yeah, I was in here yesterday afternoon. It was pretty good. Yeah. We were out here in the morning, and you just talk to people, right? And if they still want to be jerks, they're jerks, but at least that's on them, but it's funny, you give people the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes you find out that, oh, that's that guy that was here yesterday, but he's in his buddy's boat. You know what I mean? So be careful before you make a jerk of yourself. It's just fishing. So.
Yeah. Well, and we've had a lot of fun because, like you said, we go up and we talk to those people, but even occasionally, we use plastics and a lot of people around here don't. They're big fans of live bait. And, there's a time and a place for everything. But, once in a while, we'll even go and share just like one or two of the plastics that we're using. And, that's such a big gesture to people. But for us, what out of a pack of 8 or 10 or 12, depending on how they come, what really is 2 of them? But as far as on ice relationships, it goes a really long way.
We've made a lot of good contacts in the area, and we end up running into them again and again. And, one thing that sticks out in my head is we did give some plastics to one of our friends, and he was dead sticking minnows for probably as long as he's ever fished this spot.
Yeah.
So we gave him these little mayfly. They look like little wigglers. And the next time we come out, we pull up, and him and his son they doubled up as soon as we pulled up, and we're like, "Oh, you're doing good." And they're like, "Yeah, we're dead sticking these little plastics."
See, they taught you something, right? I've been there.
But yeah, so they gained something out of that interaction, as did we, because I would have never thought just to throw plastic out on a tip down, But it was working for them. They had a pail full of crappies, and they went, they got their limit, and they went home. And,
happy as clams.
Yeah, and then we got the spot. So
those are the best stories, Like, how did you ever figure that out?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you.
Well, and that's such a cool thing because you're talking about, the way that fishing makes you feel and doing it for the right reasons. That's when somebody else can get something out of it and you, that's really where it's at. So,
absolutely.
Those are the memories that you remember. Those are the important moments that you look back on. And like you're saying, it could be an argument or it could be, funny laughs later. And just, that's just a really cool thing that you can control going out onto the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we have a couple questions. We have one of our hometown kids here. He would like to know, he's part of the Clintonville ice fishing group. He wants to know, what's your biggest fish this season?
Oh, man. Walleyes, 27, 28, 27 and a half, somewhere in there. Oh, crappie, maybe 13 and a half. I haven't really caught anything big. I've had an okay year, but nothing noteworthy.
13 and a half.
Well, yeah. It's, but
I'm telling you, 13 and a half season.
We get to travel around and fish some of the best water around too, and so that kind of skews things a little bit. But nothing real crazy. We've had good fishing, but nothing
Well, the big fish bite is yet to come. That's
but it's funny, I've had good fishing, but I've been working for it. I mean, I don't think I've filmed out of well, I take that back. We filmed a sight fishing walleye episode, which was pretty cool here just recently, out of a hub. Okay, but other than that, I haven't found a good enough spot to put a fish house. I mean, I've done a lot of fishing and a lot of filming, and I've caught a few, but it's just been outside moving and grooving, and just one here, two there, that kind of thing, But that's been kind of my story this year so far. Is that I've had to move a lot, and what's interesting, well, it's been so nice too that I mean, I've been just fishing off my snowmobile or just fishing off foot, but what's interesting too is that earlier on, we didn't have that much ice for a long time, and one of the things that burned me a few times was it seemed like the fish were spooking a lot more. And if you use like a Panoptics or a live scope, you can see it. It's more obvious. But you get in a spot, you have to kind of settle down, be a little bit more methodical. Where normally 5-10 minutes, are they here or not, and you move right. Well, when those fish are spooking from you, it's like you're chasing ghosts, like you're chasing shadows. You just never catch up with them. They're always one step ahead of you, and you just have to just kind of sit and give spots a little bit more time. Instead of moving after 5 minutes, you have to give it 20 minutes, half an hour for those fish to come back underneath you. And that was one of the things that we kind of figured out earlier on this year that seemed really prominent on quite a few different lakes that we went to, is that it seemed like if I could get in a spot and just hang tight and just settle down, I caught fish. If I got impatient and bounced around too much, I just get my clock cleaned. And so you always learn something. Every year's got a new twist or something different. So
well, that kind of brings us to one of our other questions here. Our buddy from Iowa, Robert Hall, he's wondering, have you noticed this year's bite been more finesse? Because it seems like he's had to downsize to 2.5 and 3 millimeter jigs. He's fishing a lot of panfish. And
that's one of the things we've seen too, is we've been doing better with finesse. And sometimes too, you do, say you have this, you do good with finesse, well then, you have finesse tied on for the next 2 or 3 days, and it continues, you continue to do good. Turn off my ringer on my phone.
I'm sure it's fish pictures coming in.
Yeah. We'll see more information. But I mean, we've been seeing that too, and some of it's pressure, some of it's some lakes are changing with zebra mussels and things like that. But sometimes we get these fronts moving through or whatever. But I mean, we've probably used more finesse on panfish this year than most. I mean, it seems like it's always nice when you use really big stuff, whether it's big profiles on plastics or glide baits or whatever for crappies, for example. But it seems like we're using vertical stuff and real small stuff this year for whatever reasons.
And then we have one more question. Then I have to go to the newer comments. But John Noonan.
Have you ever fished? I'm not sure if I can pronounce this place right.
Denmark. Yeah. Well, I've never ice fished up there. We've done maybe 4 or 5 open water episodes. We fished early after the opener, and then we fished into the fall. And there's some great crappies. It's a neat lake. Smallmouths, muskies, few pike, nice walleyes. So hope we can get back up there someday.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then, we were just talking about, I guess, like noise on the ice and letting fish settle down and stuff. So Seth is a big believer in ditching cleats in shallower water for spooking fish. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. And even dragging stuff on the ice, dragging a sled or dragging a tub. I mean, at some point you have to get your gear out there, right? And at some point you have to drill holes to catch fish. But boy, if you can, and we've even seen it this year, and even confirming, with sight fishing or with a camera where a four-wheeler would drive up, for example, and the fish were oblivious to it. A snowmobile would drive up, and I don't know if it's just the skis scraping on the ice or the tracks, and the fish would be just gone, And so, there's definitely there's times where you can, it's like whatever you do is irrelevant, but it just seems like, I tell you, one of the toughest situations that we encounter trying to film, especially when we're going to new water, is say if it's shallow water and it's really clear water and you have clear ice, because it's really hard to find fish that way, because you have to, again, sit and let things settle. Well, if you don't know where to settle, that's kind of tough, right? I mean, you want to cover water, and so, if you're a local, right where to go and sit and plop down and wait for things to trickle back. It's almost like running traffic, but but yeah, that's one of the toughest things when fish are bumping off you like that. Then how long does it take for them to come back? So absolutely drill your holes, and what I like to do is just drill a grid of holes. 10, 15 holes, get it over with, and just don't drop nothing. Sit in your spot and sit. Let them come back. So,
well, and one thing that we've kind of adopted is we have 2 sets of cleats. We actually run early season when the ice is thinner, and has been most of the season. We run the Yak Track Diamond Tracks because they're round.
Yep.
And so they don't make very much noise at all. And then later in the season, we'll switch over to Catulas or something when the ice is a little bit thicker, and maybe it's been slushed up a couple times, so it's kind of the terrain's a little bit more rough.
Yep.
And over here, unlike the Dakotas, we don't get a whole lot of the field blowover.
Yeah.
So we can use shaver blades, and they don't get very dull because we're fishing forest lakes.
Yeah.
So having a smaller diameter hole, like I started fishing out of a 6-inch predominantly, mostly just because for one, it's quicker, and for two, I think it's a lot quieter.
Yeah.
Because we have the shaver blades and it's small.
Yeah, I use a 6-inch hole all the time, even walleye fishing, unless I'm up on somewhere like Lake Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use a 6. I mean, I get 8, 9 pound walleyes out of a 6-inch hole. And what's neat is that once you get them started, they can't. It's like they just got to keep going up. But, yeah, I mean, I use a small one. Your battery, you're able to drill a lot more holes too, especially when you start getting over 20 inches of ice. And so I use a 6-inch hole a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's you'll hear different theories. I've met guys, for example, that left slush in the hole just to block the light and stuff. I can't tell if it works or not. Sometimes with fishing, some things are maybe confidence, psychological, but whatever it is that helps you, it's like a color, right? I mean, don't take away your favorite color. You're a mere mortal then, and it's psychological warfare when they come out with new colors, and they discontinue the old ones, but yeah, I mean, but there's definitely things. What's funny is that it's, again, it's not all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times where it almost seemed like leaving my snowmobile running seemed to attract fish. As crazy as that is. The only thing I can think of is that there's like a vibration or a hum. And sometimes, for example, when you get really windy days, there's like a film on the bottom of the ice. You can almost rub your finger on. It's like a dirty window. And when you get that vibration on the ice, and wind will cause this too, where you'll get a stain or a cloud in the water. And, I've seen crazy stuff like that. I've seen crazy stuff where, fishing by an embankment, for example, where there's railroad tracks, and train would come, and that train would come and be just bang, 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 bang. You'd just catch a bunch of fish. Then you'd sit there for an hour. Then another train would come and be bang, 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 bang. Well, what would cause that? Is it like a vibration? I don't know, but I mean, you see weird, crazy stuff, and so not all noise is bad. Obviously, and obviously you have to make some kind of noise to do whatever you're going to do. But there's definitely times though where you'll be catching fish and somebody will come driving up or driving by you, and they're just gone, and it's like, wow, we're in 20 feet of water, pretty, and that's what makes fishing fun, is there's always something to learn, and when you learn something, then it changes,
So we've talked a lot about spots and setting places and all of that. And, one of the most important things is when you first drop your bait down your 6-inch hole, to have something on there that you're confident in. So what is your go-to bait for like a panfish or a walleye?
I don't know. It's amazing. And this might surprise people, but I'm not a big color person. I'm not even a big bait or lure person. I mean, I've got my favorites, and I'll tell you what they are. But I get 20 emails a day or messages a day, where people, what lure should I use? Well, there's probably 100 of them that'll work. Okay, that's the truth. I'm just telling you the truth, and that's the other thing with fishing. If you want to make your living in the fishing industry, you never go wrong just telling people the truth. I mean, that's but you can be in the right place at the right time, and you can use the wrong lure and catch a lot of fish. Okay, you can use the wrong color and catch a lot of fish. You can use the wrong plastic and catch a lot of fish. But if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time with the right lure, I can tell you what happens. We all know what happens, right? And so worry about finding fresh fish, finding new fish especially. The biggest thing is if you're having a tough time and you're just in a spot that's just been beat up. Okay, I've been here for 5 weeks. I've caught every fish but these last 3, and these last 3 are really hard, right? Yeah. It's hard to make a move, right? Or, I mean, it's just, you know, and so that's the biggest thing, is just trying to stay one step ahead, and you know, you just have that feeling where, okay, I'm starting to wear out my welcome, or the spot is just, we're starting to wear it out. I mean, you know, people have been on this weed line or this bowl for, you know, 2 weeks, and there's probably been 300 fish that have been hauled out of here. When we start with 500, you know, so, you know, the fish that are left are a lot harder to catch because there's less competition amongst them. You know, the other thing that happens a lot is that a lot of times the big fish get pulled out first because they're the dominant fish in a school. And so when the fish get harder and they get smaller, it's time to move, right? That's not time to change color. That's not time to change the lure. Just move, find new fish. And but then when you find those new fish, what you find is that when you're the first person to drop on those fish, it doesn't matter if you're using the wrong color, right? And so that's how you catch fish. But with that being said, I mean, I love the tungsten, like the Drop XLs. I like the Drop XL just because it's got a bigger hook, so I can put a bigger plastic on it. The reason I like to use a bigger profile is, in my mind, fish can see it from further, and big fish will have a higher ceiling. They'll climb the rungs on that ladder higher up in the water column to get to you. And I feel like I can catch way bigger fish. Usually, I'm talking panfish, you know, bluegills and crappies, by fishing higher than what most of the fish are willing to go. Okay, you're going to catch fewer fish, but the fish that do come up and meet you are the big ones. The small fish don't like leaving the pack. Okay, you can get the whole pack to creep up. Okay, but if you can get above the pack, you know, I'm talking, you know, it depends on the window and the water visibility and stuff. Let's say it's 3 feet, 6 feet, whatever it is. If that lone shark that's cruising up above the rest of them, that's the 14-inch crappie in a pack of 11 inchers. You know, and so that's one thing I like to do a lot is get above them, and that's why I like to use the bigger profiles. They can see it from further away. You know, whether it's a Mackie or a Jamie. I mean, I love that stuff. It's not as durable as some of the others, but it's got great action. There's a time and place for spoons. I mean, there's even a time and place for dead sticking. You know, I mean, I always hated dead sticking because I always thought, well, you know, I can sit in my hands in my pockets, and you know, there's nothing worse than when you're really trying to catch a fish and you're really working hard at it, and somebody cleans your clock while they're drinking a beer, right? So, but it happens all the time. I mean, I've seen it happen. You know, I mean, there's times where it's just a finesse bite where, I mean, I've seen it like in Minnesota, for example, in Wisconsin, where you have walleye lakes, for example, that you have lower densities of fish, but there's nice fish and there's good fish. Okay, but there's not enough fish on a spot where they're really wound up competing against each other, and so they can be really hard to trick with, say, your traditional glide baits and lures and things, especially after early ice, get in the middle of the winter. But if you just soak a sucker or a chub in that walleye's bedroom long enough, sooner or later, it's going to make a mistake, right? And so, you know, you see that. I mean, you see even the dead stick and shiner thing sometimes outfish everything on places like Lake of the Woods and Mille Lacs, you know, and especially on Mille Lacs, you know, those fish have been caught on so many different things. I mean, when you catch a fish, you can see somebody else's handprints on it, right? You know, it's you know, I mean, it's not like you're catching a fish it's never, you know, been handled or caught, you know. And I think fish do get conditioned to lures. I mean, I've had fish in an aquarium, and when I was, you know, 18 years old, 20 years old, I remember coming back from a party and we'd fish, right, when we had a few drinks in us, and you'd catch a bass, he'd be flopping around on the carpet, and you'd pick him up and throw him back in there, and he'd swim off the corner. Well, after a while, you couldn't catch a fish on a teardrop. I mean, you drop it down there, they just stare at it. I mean, they figure things out. I mean, you know, fish get conditioned, and so with that being said, you know, the last thing you condition a fish on is, you know, 6-pound fluorocarbon and a really nice looking shiner and a split shot. You know, I mean, when that doesn't catch them, it's like just hanging up, right? And so, you know, I mean, there's a time and place for everything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And if you try to be the fish finder, you can usually catch fish on a lot of different things. And then if you're marking fish and you say you're getting short hit, you know, they're coming up and they're stalling, that's when you start changing stuff. And what I always compare it to is like a black and white television set. You know, for people young enough to remember that, where you have the channels, you just keep turning the channel until finally you get a channel that works when you have your rabbit ears up. Okay, that's what it is. You turn those channels as fast as you can to try to find something that works. Sometimes it's a matter of getting up high and making the fish come up to you. Sometimes it's a matter of, I mean, I've seen it where, you know, I love to use soft plastics because of the durability, but there's time and place where somebody using a half frozen wax from there, you just squeeze it where it just get a little flop, they'll clean your clock, you know, on a tough bite. I've seen it where, and this is crazy to me, but I've seen, you know, sight fishing like down in Iowa, places where if you weren't using a 1 pound test, those bluegills would stall out 2 feet from you. well, why? I mean, you think that with 2-pound tests, 3-pound tests, from a fish's perspective, as far as in the water, you would think that they wouldn't be able to see monofilament or fluorocarbon. But there's something to it. I always figured with tough fishing is the lighter line is a resistance thing where they could suck it in, But I mean, there's, you see that's what I love about what we do. We travel all over and see some of the craziest stuff. It's like, wow, you can't catch a fish on 3-pound? No, you can't. I'm gonna try it tomorrow and find out. Well, wow, they're telling the truth. I mean, you just see all kinds of crazy stuff. So.
Well, and that's related to one of my favorite Devil's Lake stories. I was fishing with a bunch of buddies. They actually live out your way, and we were staying at a resort that's right on the water, and we just drove off from the resort. We were heading out to the power lines.
Yeah.
And the guy that runs the bait station, it was super foggy, beginning of December. Mm-hmm. Thick pea soup fog, and the guy who runs the bait station had a big, huge F-350 with a plow on it, and we're like, don't even know if it's safe to drive vehicles out there yet,
Yeah.
He just heads out into the fog, and he stops right barely where we could see him, and he does a hole, and we're like, oh, we'll follow him out. He's going to the power lines. So we're going out to the power lines. We set up. All of us are jigging and stuff, and nobody's catching anything. And I'm just super tired. I was hanging out with my friends all night or whatever. And so I just put clip bobbers on and I threw it down, and I was just about to fall asleep. And my bobber goes, whoop. And then my next bobber goes, whoop. And I set one and I set the other one and I put it in the rod holder. And then I had a perch, so I threw it out the door. And then I had another perch and I threw it out the door. And then my next one went, whoop. And it was a nice northern. And my friends were like, what are you doing in there? And I said, just stop touching your stuff. So everybody, you could almost hear all the rods hit the ice.
Yeah,
and then just fish started flying out.
Yeah.
And so it's, you just never know when you just need that a minnow and a bobber.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that saved me guiding. I mean, just we have get that what we call a brain surgery bite, where those fish are in 30 feet of water or more at times, and yeah, I mean, just a split shot, the tiniest fathead minnow you could find in a pail, 3 to 6 inches off the bottom, and when you can't catch them on that anymore, you're just like, oh, now what do I do? Like down to our bayonets,
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So we've, shared a lot of good stories tonight, and hopefully some fuel for your next adventure. But I guess for people at home, if they don't already know how to follow you, what are the best ways to do that?
Well, if you have watch TV, we're on Fox Sports North every Sunday mornings at 9:00, and that's up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern half of Iowa. I think it covers northeastern Nebraska and the Dakotas, North and South Dakota. And then we are on Fox Sports Midwest. I think that's 8:30 Saturday mornings. And that's in Nebraska, Kansas, Southern Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, and Illinois. And then if you live outside that area, if you don't have cable or don't have, aren't sitting around on a weekend morning watching TV, follow us on YouTube. Just Jason Mitchell Outdoors on YouTube, or our social media. We're on Instagram or Facebook too. So, and it seems like we're probably get as many or more people watch us on YouTube, it seems like, than on TV. So that's definitely changed over the last 5 years. That YouTube is where it's at. So.
And some of you may be at home watching this on YouTube. So this is available on social media, Facebook, YouTube, all of that good stuff. And, we're looking forward to following some more of your adventures and seeing how the rest of ice season goes.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. And hopefully next year we'll get to see you at shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. If you stick around just for a sec, we'll say bye.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
So to everybody else who was hanging out and listening to this awesome discussion, it was really a good time.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah. I know that we have a lot of really fun stuff coming up with the Ice Junkies meet and greet. So we are going to be camping on the ice, and we will tell you all about that because I know that'll be an adventure.
What are we doing next Thursday?
And to be honest, I'd have to look at the calendar. So make sure.
Yeah.
Make sure to check out our event after this. We post it.
Yeah, we'll post it right after.
So we look forward to see you next week. And thank you for joining us on the Night Bite.